the best thing you can do is spend a little time on it every day, even if it's just 5 minutes. Always keep it in the front of your brain. Always be thinking about it. Always be thinking, see how it relates to other aspects of your lives. How can you take other lessons, whether it's from friends or family or your current work situation or whatever it is you want to do? Can you somehow use that to help realize this other donut?
Hello, everybody. I am Melissa Forziat of Take the Doughnut, here to help you get inspiration and get donuts. I'm a motivational keynote speaker, and today I am bringing you a Take the Doughnut interview with Erin Rivera, who is the owner of the Frugal Frigate, an independent children's bookstore located in historic downtown Redlands, California. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so glad to talk with you. And before we get into any more serious questions, what is your favorite donut?
My favorite donut, I'm pretty simple, but there's a little backstory. I grew up in the Deep South, and there's a donut chain there called Shipley's. And their donut holes and their plain glazed donuts, there's nothing quite like them. So those are my favorite, but I don't get them anymore.
Well, you've moved locations, but here
Yeah.
we are. Shipley's. Shout out to Shipley's.
Yep.
Nice. Well, I said just a little bit about you up front, but tell us more about yourself. What should we know about you?
Where would you like me to start?
Wherever you feel is right to start. First of all, I said that you have an independent children's bookstore, and I feel like there's more you want to expand on with that as well, right?
Absolutely. So we are an independent children's bookstore. We are probably 80% children's books, all from newborns all the way up to teen and young adult fiction and nonfiction. But the original owner, Catherine, back in the 90s, she started a small space called A Room of One's Own. And it was, at the time, books for, by, and about women. The second owner closed that space and just made it 100% children's books. And so as the fifth owner, when I bought it, it was very important to me to bring that space back because it was hugely important to me when I was a young woman growing up. So in 2021, summer of 2021, I reopened A Room of One's Own. And so we do have some adult books, everything from fiction, nonfiction, cookbooks, personal growth, spiritual, book themed candles and journals and things like that. So we do have a small offering for adults as well.
Wonderful. So I kind of hijacked your answer there a little bit because I knew you wanted to say a little bit more about the store, but tell us more about you as well. I mean, we know that you've moved in your life. We know that you took on this big project of kind of re-exploring a space that you were familiar with in your youth. What else should we know about you?
Yes, I mean, since we're kind of here to talk about the bookstore, I worked there from 1994 to 1998. The original owner gave me my first job when I was 15. So you can do the math. I'm 46. But so I worked there in high school and college. And after college, I was in the insurance industry of all things for about 20 years. And one day I was working and I was handling a catastrophe. It was the Camp Fire when the whole city of Paradise burned down in 2019. And a text came through from a friend and she just sent me a screenshot and it was the listing for the Frugal Frigate. And she just said, "Did you see your bookstore is for sale?" And that was it.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought about it for, no exaggeration, maybe 5 minutes. Like I kind of got up and paced, and maybe 5 minutes later, I text my husband at work because he can't really answer the phone while he's working. He's a union iron worker, so he's on the job site during the day. and I called my mother, kind of hyperventilating, and I said, "I think I want to buy the bookstore. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to try." And she said, "Well, if I can help, I will." And I called the realtor and I set a meeting for that night, met with the last owners, had a handshake deal, and entered escrow a few days later.
How did you know? What made you know that that was the right the right thing to do, the right moment to make this decision?
I wish I could tell you and pinpoint like a roadmap for you and your viewers to know like when it's right. Um, and a little more background on me. I'm a very cautious person. Um, I, as a hobby, was an official for roller derby for a decade. Like I like rules and I like parameters and I like knowing where I stand and I like knowing what's coming and being prepared. And I worked in insurance, so I like to plan for contingencies. And for whatever reason, I think this is probably the only thing in the world that would have made me drop everything and get out of my comfort zone. And it was that bookstore. And it's just because this place that Catherine created when she opened in 1988 is just, it's magical and it's safe and it's cozy and it's everything a bookstore should be. And it's a safe space. And so I wish I could tell you what it is that did it, but I think it just has to be something that speaks to you and makes your heart sing.
It's beautifully said. A lot of instinct in there. It's like
Yeah.
a clear purpose for you. Now,
Yeah.
you're clearly the right person to talk to for this conversation.
It's definitely a big donut.
Yeah, I mean, so we've been saying this take the donut theme, right? What does that mean? For those of you who've never seen a Take the Donut interview before, let me just reset this for you. So take the donut for me is another way to say carpe diem. It comes from this very strange thing that happened to me in college, where I left an actual donut on a table, but that became an object lesson for me in what it looks like to leave opportunities behind. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to take the donut. And I'll link a video here for those who want to see the full origin story. But basically, this conversation is all about going after the things that you want in life, going after goals, and what that actually looks like, practically speaking, for those of us who do it. So I'd like to ask this question to get us going with that theme here. How are you with going after goals? What is that process like for you?
You know, as I've grown and become more self-aware, and learned more about myself over the years, especially in my 40s, and kind of figuring things out, I feel like I was always the kind of person that really didn't pursue things unless I knew I'd be good at them. Um, and I mean, that's probably a lot to unpack in a different type of interview. But yeah, so I didn't really pursue things unless I knew I was going to be successful at it, or at least had a reasonable expectation to be successful at it. Um, Kind of a perfectionist. Um, and Yeah, so with this, again, this is completely out of my comfort zone. I can't pinpoint why. It just was perfect timing. And I was very unhappy in my career. I had sort of settled in and just acquiesced to the fact that, like, okay, this is what my Monday to Friday looks like. I won't work overtime. I don't work weekends. And so we just kind of work to play. And I had really kind of settled into that mentality literally about 6 months before this opportunity came up. And so I was just cruising. I was well paid. I had great benefits, a lot of security. And on paper, it was a great career, but I was miserable. And I I never would have taken that leap for anything other than this, and I can't even tell you why. But now, having done this, I have learned so much about being able to pivot quickly. I mean, we had a pandemic that started 8 months after I bought this store. Um, how to kind of just roll with it. And honestly, my hobby as an official in roller derby did that a lot too, because roller derby is a very DIY sport. And so you just kind of have to roll with it and fix things in the moment and just kind of adapt. And so that was actually very helpful now as a small business owner. I learned a lot about myself during that period, and I think grew and changed a lot, to the point that I could do something that was not pre-planned, that I didn't know if I'd be good at it, that we just kind of had to dive in and see if we could swim.
I'm willing to bet there are so many people who listen to this who will be nodding their heads. I mean, you have very specific particulars, we all do. But I think that feeling of being in a situation where we know it's not right, where we know it's not serving us,
Yeah.
we're getting by, and that's about all we can say. And then like something comes in front of you that sort of makes your heart sing a little bit, and it's like, oh, that's what that sounds like. I love hearing that story from you. I know what it feels like to be there. I'm sure there are people who are listening who've gotten to the other side of it. Maybe there are people who are listening who are in it. And I think it's just such a wonderful message that you never know what could be on the other side of that if you take a leap. So powerful. When you are going after something that you want, especially something that's really big, something that'll take a lot of time, what keeps you motivated?
I think the biggest motivator is that feeling that I know is coming when I come home the night that it's all done and have a glass of wine, kick back, and kind of just think back on all of the work it took to get to that point, how, say it's an event, how the event went, how it was received by the people that came, and if it was a success. And that feeling, that's the feeling that I chase now. That feeling of looking backwards and being like, I did that.
Oh, that's a cool thing to think about. It just flashed through my brain some of those moments when I've done that, and it feels good. When you're going after something you want, inevitably obstacles come up, right? We all have challenges that we face. For you, is there a particular brand of challenge that just seems to keep coming up over and over again for you, no matter what you're doing? Like, what is your Achilles heel?
I think my Achilles heel, it's probably common for a lot of people, is being able to accept the things that are out of our control. Things happen, life happens. People that you might be depending on also have lives, and through no fault of their own, might not be able to bring this big component that you were waiting on or banking on to make your thing successful. And when that happens, you have to decide how you want to handle it. What kind of person do you want to be, and how do you want to be perceived? For me, it's transparency. I had one event and it was the biggest thing I had ever planned, and it was for the community, and it was free for the community, and I was putting on a show for the community, and the star that I had hired got COVID the morning of, and I had to figure out what I was going to do. And normally I can scramble and I can make something happen and I can bring it together, but this was just too specific of a skill that this one performer had. She was an impersonator, and so I had to turn it into something else. So I went on to Instagram Live and I told everybody what had happened and that we were very sorry. I'm not even going to try to sugarcoat it. Here's what we're going to do instead. You're welcome to come down, bring the family. We're going to do a big story time in the park. We're going to have a DJ and a kids dance party. And like, that's kind of the best I could do with 6 hours notice. But you just have to not dwell on the things that are not in your control. And that, for a former perfectionist, seemed impossible.
Yeah. It's a good message for me to hear today. I'll tell you that much. I'm nodding my head and just absorbing it as you're talking. Gosh, when you think back on your life, now this could be a personal or professional answer, recent, long past, whatever comes to mind. What would you say is the biggest donut that you've ever taken?
There's a couple. Well, there's three. The bookstore is probably the biggest. Financially, it's certainly the biggest donut I've ever taken. And but I think personally, realizing that a long-term relationship that I was in was not the right person, through no fault of their own, and walking away from that safety and comfort and kind of normal routine to find something great, which I also did. His name is Jared. And he was very supportive when I said I wanted to buy the bookstore as well. My husband has been wonderful. I could not have done this without my husband and my mom. And the first big donut I took, I think I'm gonna reserve that one because it's I was younger and little, and it was a big donut and it was a big scary donut, but I took it for the best,
Oh,
for the
a
better.
secret donut that you get to
Yeah,
keep. I love
yeah.
it. But you got some really good ones in there for us all to think about. You know, is there a donut that you're taking right now? What's in progress for you?
Yes, I am opening a second store. That is
Ooh.
my new donut, and it's a small donut. It's a small satellite store, one town over in San Bernardino. But San Bernardino doesn't really have a bookstore in their community, and there's a historic building on E Street called the Enterprise Building, and it's a kind of an Art Deco style. And the owner of that building is trying to help the downtown revitalization project in downtown San Bernardino. Um, and so inside the atrium of this historic building are 3 levels of retail space, basically. So we have a small, like, micro bookstore that we're putting in there that's basically going to just be kind of a cross section sampling of everything that we offer at our main store. But now we'll also have a bookstore for the community of San Bernardino. And
Oh,
that's going
that's
to open
amazing.
November. Yeah, November 1st.
So, okay, so I'm curious with this. You know, taking on, buying the Frugal Frigate and
Hmm.
being the owner of that, you had something very specific in mind about a location that you remembered from your childhood. So when you're thinking about this new space,
Hmm.
is there something that needs to be true about that for you in terms of what you're creating? Are you trying to do sort of like a mini replica, or is there something different that you're trying to bring to this? What feels like it's at the
Yeah.
core that you're trying to get out there with this space?
It's definitely like a mini replica. I want to bring the same feeling that we have in our main store. Um, our mission statement is that any child who walks in can find themselves on the shelf. Um, and then, now that we've opened up a room of one's own, like, any person who comes in, adult or child, could find themselves somewhere on the shelf. We want those mirrors to reflect life experiences and identities so that people can see themselves in stories. And so that I am bringing to this new location. So it's going to just be a cross section of baby books all the way up to adults. And we want to make sure we hit all the demographics so everyone feels included.
So exciting.
Mhm.
Well, there may be people who are listening to this who have a donut of their own that they want to take, and it might be still an idea for them, or it could be
Mhm.
something that they've started towards. But let's sprinkle some encouragement here. So, what advice would you get? We always do the puns here.
I love
what
it.
what advice would you give to those people who have a thing that they want to do and they're trying to figure out, how to keep moving forward on their path?
I think that the best thing you can do is spend a little time on it every day, even if it's just 5 minutes. Always keep it in the front of your brain. Always be thinking about it. Always be thinking, see how it relates to other aspects of your lives. How can you take other lessons, whether it's from friends or family or your current work situation or whatever it is you want to do? Can you somehow use that to help realize this other donut? Um, because if you can draw from around you and within you and use your experiences, you're going to be that much more successful and feel like you're headed in the right direction because it's a little bit of familiarity that you are now making something new.
Great advice. For those who want to follow you on your journey, maybe check out the new store when it's
Mhm.
open, where can they find you?
Online, we are at frugalfrigate.com. On Instagram, we are at Frugal Frigate. We are also at A Frigate of One's Own, because A Room of One's Own is a very popular work by Virginia Woolf. And there is a wonderful bookstore in Madison, Wisconsin that is called A Room of One's Own. And I named our little subsection with their blessing. So it is A Frigate of One's Own, and Frugal Frigate is our main one. You can find either from the other ones there. We do have a TikTok. I don't have time to keep up on it, so it's not updated very often.
Fair enough. Well, I will put
Yeah,
links in the description, and
sure.
everybody should check out those resources so you can see what Erin's up to. And for those of you who enjoyed this interview, please go ahead and like and subscribe on this video because there's so many inspirational interviews still to come. But in the meantime, thank you so much, Erin, for joining me, for joining all of us and sharing some of your personal thoughts and the information about how to take the donut and go after what you want.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This was really fun.
It was a blast to talk with you. And to everybody who's listening, you know what to do. Get inspiration and get donuts. Bye, everyone.